Welcome back. We had an excellent morning session. We had a great introduction with a number of slides thinking about how to present data, how can data be represented, how to think about data. We're going to continue along with a number of other presentations. So our next speaker is going to be Frank Nitsche, and he's going to be speaking to us about fair data for the polar regions. So please welcome Frank. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm Frank Nitsche. I'm representing the US Antarctic Program Data Center that we are hosting at Mount Doherty Earth Observatory in Columbia in New York. And today I want to present some kind of work in progress that we are doing to kind of improve the information we are getting from data submitters, and in terms of describing the data. As we heard earlier this morning, we have to get more metadata, more information, which makes the data really reproducible or comparable. So we're trying to create a checklist that uses to incentivize kind of users or the data providers to give us more information. So a little bit about ourselves. So the US Antarctic Program Data Center, we are funded by the National Science Foundation, and we are kind of a, let's say, domain repository for all kind of US Antarctic data that are funded through the National Science Foundation in the US. And our goals are to, well, we are support the countries that are funded in terms of the data obligation. NSF requires all funded projects to make the data available to a repository, and there used to be, and there still are a lot of discipline-specific repositories, but there's a lot of other data that didn't have a home, and the people were complaining, saying, yeah, we have to make our data available, there's no place. So then NSF funded us to be a place for all this data to be archived. And it's very important because a lot of, as you know, observations in the both polar regions are quite unique, and they need the preservation. And we also, another goal is that we, provide enough information so that with all the data being available, science can be reusable, and also because it's very expensive to collect the data, making the data available in a way that it can be reused by other scientists, so they don't have to recollect data again. Since we are kind of, a domain repository, we get all kinds of various data. We have a lot of ice core data. We get like burn data. That's everyone who goes, and there's radar data. We got seal movement. We get penguin data. We have seal molting data, all kinds of images of different kinds. We have a whole variety of data, so not really like specific data types that we can focus on, which is so we have many different data sets, different formats, data types from all disciplines, which sometimes makes it difficult to find like unique standard for all of them. And we, on the other hand, like mentioned, we're trying to get the data as close to the FAIR principles as possible. And there are certain things that we can do as a repository. We can create a DOI. We can expose the metadata, through schema.org, the AMD, and other pathways to make the data more findable. We have an API. We help data providers with creating or choosing a license for the data. But there's other issues where we really rely on the data providers or users. So they have to come provide the data in a certain format. They have to bring in or make good descriptions of the data. They have to provide the details of the metadata, choose keywords and things like that. So there's little, I mean, making the data really fair is a combination of what we can do as a repository and what data providers have to provide. And we try to get better information from the data providers as well. How do we collect information? So we have our web page here, and basically we can search on data. You can register a project. That's something NSF likes to do for different awards. And then the thing I want to focus on today is that we have a function where people can deposit data sets. And we try to make it easy for data providers, because the easier it is, the more likely it is that they provide information. So we have a straightforward web form where we collect information on like the contact information, but also like title, description, authors. They link it to an NSF award. Usually we have also be collecting information on spatial, temporal extent. And then we have also more like text fields where they can describe what instruments have been used, how they've been used, how's data been acquired, what processing has been done, and where they can also describe in detail like how's it the content of the data. And in the end, we provide those data as in a data set landing page where we have our title, UI, citation. We have some description, some basic metadata directly on the page, and then we have on the bottom in the README file, we have all the other information that we collected through the web page, through the web form, bind together with the description of the data set, etc. And then actually the data files for download. And that's it. So the problem isn't that every repository probably knows about it. The data submission, the quality of the metadata and description can vary a lot, and sometimes it's really sparse. And so we're looking into ways to incentivize the data provider to provide better data, and at the same time also, kind of potential users to show them which data set has a good quality data or metadata attached to it and which maybe not. So we try to evaluate it, and with that maybe to improve the submissions. And the way we come up with like a very basic evaluation system where we have different criteria, and then we basically rate them as poor, fair, good, or it's not required. And as an example, we go say, okay, is the title descriptive? So we do get an example like this, very poor, like data for Batman et al. 2001. I mean, basically that's people who, when the journal tells them you have to put the data from them, they just put the data et al. Like their paper citation in there. That's not really descriptive if people look for the data. And then you can improve it by saying, okay, current temperature data with a time in it, which is okay, but maybe not great. And if there's actually, for example, here location attached to it, that would be a much better description of the data. So we try to go in and rank those data. And we do it for different things at the moment. We just implemented this part, so we look for title, abstract, keyword. It's like a spatial temporal information. It is good as a description of data acquisition or creation. If it's like a model, for example, it's a description of processing, data content. The file names are making sense. Is the file name, a file format good? Or if it's multiple files, is it organized in an understandable way? If it's table data, is the headers are good, or units are kind of standard and things. And maybe if there's a publication or not. So we look for those, and it's all like a little bit work in progress right now. Would be, I'm open to feedback as anything that we're missing, from your experience, that anything we can add to the list that might be worthwhile in including. And to make it easier, so for us, and we get a data set and rate it and check it. We have a little web tool for us where we basically have a slider and say, okay, it's good, it's fair, it's poor or it doesn't apply, and if it's not so good, we can add a little comment why we think it's not very useful. And so we store this in our database. And the next step that we haven't implemented, I was hoping we get to this by this meeting, but our developer is actually going to start today. I'm working on this. It wasn't available last month, so we try to get this information once we collect it and kind of provide feedback. At the moment, we just give some feedback as per email and response, but we want to make it a little more formal. And one way we're planning to do this, so we have for each person who has data sets or project in our database, we have a little dashboard where you can see what projects they have, and this is like a dummy version here, but and which data sets they have, and maybe we're gonna add another column to the data sets that basically says, okay, your data submission here, that's actually poor and or good or fair. And the idea is that people don't like to see like a bad mark to the data set, so they want to say, I want to really have good data, so they kind of improve it. And they also don't want to, with the insight that sometimes the NSF program manager might go to our site and check for compliance, and they don't want to have their data set showing as poor. I mean, that's our idea to kind of incentivize because to provide better data sets. And we have a function so they can go back and edit their metadata. And another thing we want to do more for the user side. So at the moment we have a data site page where you can click and edit it and report issues, but we might add another button like with the rating and maybe other thing that has a little more information about what is good and what is not good about a data set, so people or users can see what might be useful. I mean, the main thing is improving the submission quality of the users. So in summary, we are the main repository. We get all kinds of diverse Antarctic data, and we try to make it easy for data submitters to provide the data and things. But the other time, we have to maybe get a little more strict in enforcing what kind of data the quality of the data, and trying to improve this by providing some feedback and using our checklist approach. And thank you with that. And as I said, I'm open for questions, suggestions.
I was just going to say, getting people to avoid the mark of shame is a valid tactic. Questions from the audience for Frank? We have a good amount of time. Yes, I'll start with Dave over there.
So who does the evaluation of people's data sets and metadata?
That's our team. Is just all like part-time persons. So like 3 of them are like curators. So we go through the data. And that once we come in, that's part of the process. You submit the data to us before you get like a DOI and things. We do the basic checks if everything is okay anyway.
So there's more than one person that researchers hate because they keep giving them bad marks.
Now we have more than
you need lots of people. Another question? Yes.
Yeah. Do you, if you have your kind of quality scale, is there a minimum on the scale that they have to meet before you'll submit a DOI, or is it more to do with feedback for the next time they do something?
There is, we have it's not very strict at the moment, but depending. Great of it is basically we're saying, certain formats, if they're like proprietary, we say, can you change this? Can you provide us name? So if there's a lot of poor, basically, we would ask them to correct it, but if it's kind of okay. So at the moment, we're getting a lot of Excel data, which we decided, CSV would be better, but Excel is okay, so we would allow it and not fault them for that, for example. But if it's like some other format in like a binary self-created format not described, we would not accept that. So if it's a lot of poor, we don't do it. So, but if it's a lot of fair, then we let it pass. But we know that's not if they could do it better, basically.
Any other questions for Frank? Yes, Helen.
Yeah, it's interesting that you sort of are going for an automatic deposit sort of form, and then providing advice for the researchers to improve the metadata themselves. Because I guess we take a different approach where, yes, they fill in a template, but then we work with them to improve the things that we feel need improving. And then we would also help possibly change the format of their data if it was in a format that we didn't accept or felt that there was a better format. So do you ever, change things on behalf of researchers, or is it a question of always going back to them and hoping that they will make the changes?
It's a mix. So we do things like, so we say, oh, we added some additional keywords that are obviously missing, or sometimes we change the file names and ask them to do this. We don't do much with file format changing too much. I mean, we go back and forth and saying that's not acceptable. You have to either change this to a data table or provide some code to read your binary data set. So we do that occasionally, but we see more the mission to really archive the data, and we don't want to, put people too much off in terms of say, okay, now we're not providing our data, we have to do all the work. And but we also a small team, we're not having all the capacity to read all the data.
All right, if you have additional questions, save them for Frank for the break. So thank you again.